Hey, Roger. How are you doing? We're waiting here for Crocky to join in. But I believe, Roger, you're calling in from Florida, right?
Absolutely. And it's been 70 odd degrees all day long. Same thing for the next week. I'm happy.
Nice. For all those who are shoveling snow this morning,
Exactly.
Roger's out cleaning the pool. So excellent. Now, you're down in Florida. Are you a basketball fan?
I used to be a basketball fan. I grew up in Manhattan, and I was able to walk to Madison Square Garden.
Oh, nice.
So picture this, the Knicks, the 1970s, Walt Frazier, Dave DeBusschere, Dave Barnett, Reardon, um, the big guy, the center, can't remember his name, very famous. Um, but I used to go to as many games as I could. And then over the years, I didn't know any of the players, and everyone would say, "Oh, you love the Knicks." It's like, I don't know who the Knicks are anymore. I couldn't name
Right.
a single player.
All
So it
right.
was like
Well, you must not watch college basketball because that's what I was referencing. But the Gators took it all. So
Willis
I was
Reed. That's who I was.
Phyllis Reed. Nice. That is an old name. That's been a while since you've been watching
Oh
basketball.
yes, it was the mid 70s.
Nice, nice. Well, good. Well, Crocky will be joining us, so we'll have somebody representing the Gators and a crocodile on at the same time. We'll see if those can't do heads. So as he jumps, I'll get us started off here. You are listening to Hostile Dysfunction. Welcome to the conversation where we unpack the wild, interconnected chaos shaping our world, including the population's decline and all the reasons for it. Please welcome Rodger Friedman, our guest today, a fiscal conservative and former senior vice president of Morgan Stanley Wealth Management. Drawing on his extensive financial background and a clear eyed perspective, Rodger is deeply concerned about the direction of the nation. In his new book, Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country, is a call to action for concerned Americans to help get the country back on track. Rodger, thanks for joining us today. As we bring this in, one thing I wanted to ask you, I saw your website is Equal Opportunity Critic. Maybe you can dive into that. As I've read a little bit, you definitely lean on the conservative side. So I wanted to kind of understand
Right.
the
I'm a
meaning of
conservative
this name.
anti-rhino, but I found out that there are enough
And
hype.
by anti-rhino, you mean those who just blindly vote
Yes,
Republican.
yes, Republican in name only. There's enough shenanigans on the Republican side of the aisle, to be able to make fun and make light of them as well. Although the Democrats, they keep me busy. Every 2 weeks I write the Equal Opportunity Times, and I'll have you know that this book that I wrote is actually the first 47 issues of the Equal Opportunity Times. And I'm just
I did
penning
notice they're not in chapters. You have them in memos, right?
memos, yes, because that's what they were. But anyway, it was called the Sunday Memo. We've moved to a better neighborhood, like George Jefferson. It's now the Equal Opportunity Times. And I'm just
I see.
writing number 100.
Gotcha.
So keeps me busy, keeps me off the streets, out of the bars. But there's occasionally a good Republican idiot to write about. But there are so many more Democrats, and I've just
I
had
see.
fun doing it.
I see.
So equal
But in reference to
opportunity for all.
your equal opportunity, there's a new phrase where this really came out with even Kamala Harris when she was running. There is a difference: equal opportunity versus equal outcome. How would you say those two
I've
differ? Is it
written
ironic
about
that you're
that
equal opportunity
extensively.
critic, or do you run on the old
So,
version of what?
so her platform was all about equal outcome. Okay. Um, my platform, or the platform of the rational, is that you all have equal opportunity. And if you haven't done well in life, it most likely could be traced back to poor decisions, poor behavior. because your life and everything in it is a result of the decisions you have made, good ones or bad ones. Okay. And to blame the government that your lot in life is not as good as the guy across the street, that's that's not right. Ethan,
Hey, how you
I've been
heard
all about you,
I'm a little
and I
late,
wanted to
sorry.
say hello.
Hey, g'day. We say g'day here. Yeah, no. It's great to meet you.
How are you?
Crocky, where are you calling in from?
I'm from Brisbane. I'm in Brisbane at the moment, Brisbane, Australia. So,
Okay.
And he doesn't, although he's in Australia, and a very popular sports game in Australia is Aussie Rules. Ethan does not follow such things. It's rugby union, right?
not
That's
even
what
union,
you better
it's rugby league. So there's like 5 football.
Oh, rugby league. Did I get it wrong?
There's
Rugby league.
5 major football codes in Australia.
So, if we ask Elon real nice, maybe he'll send a Starlink satellite over your building, give you
Wow.
some better internet.
I know that's my problem here is I'm away and I'm having to slingshot it off a phone here.
Well, that's not it. So, as you can tell, Roger and I are both in the U.S., so we exchanged just right. But with these new tariffs, we've had to, really take that out of Ethan's internet. So,
Yes.
he's kind of getting Skype there.
Someone's
I think
taxing
there's at
my
least a
internet
10 to
speed here.
40% tariff.
Yeah, Ethan, that'll be 145% starting at midnight.
No, can we
Yeah.
pause it? We want to do a deal. Can we pause it? Give us a 90-day pause.
All right. Let's delay this 90 days and we'll come back. Oh, see, the internet's already fixed. It's already better.
Oh, that is
That's
better.
already better. That's nice. Well, Ethan, we were just talking, kind of kicking things off about Roger's website and some of the references he has in there. And Roger, you're originally from New York? You're
I'm
native New
from the
Yorker?
Lower East Side of Manhattan.
Wow.
If either of
You are a
ever
New
been
Yorker.
to New York City, let me put it.
I went to school upstate, and they're two different worlds. So
I did too. We'll get to that in a minute.
Avoided the city.
So 1 mile north of me was the United Nations. 1
wow.
mile south of me was Greenwich Village. My dad's laundry was at Times Square. And my 2 grandmas, one lived on one side of Central Park, one lived on the other, Upper East Side, Upper West Side. So
you got the boroughs covered.
But I went
Yeah.
to school at SUNY, State University of New York, college at Brockport.
You are a New Yorker.
Where men are men and so are the women. And that used to mean something different back in the 70s, okay?
Yeah, what's the woman?
But it was cold as hell.
Very cold, yes.
Where did you go to
Upstate
school?
New York. Then Ithaca.
Cornell, okay, got it.
And lots of snow.
It
So
was cold there also, yes.
yeah, definitely gets lots of snow. Well, it's interesting you're out of New York. This was the depot stop for most of the immigration that came into this country. But give us a little flavor for what you've seen in New York. I've read a little bit, and I've heard you speak a few times, and so I've gotten a little bit of flavor. But give the listeners here a little flavor of how you've seen immigration change and kind of the impact that we're seeing in the country.
Well, I left New York when I was in my 20s. So I spent the last 35 years in Maryland, which is a deep blue.
Well, then you really haven't seen the best New York because you couldn't even drink yet. I mean, that's
Well, in New York, they'll push you onto the subway tracks. So I'm not itching to go back
Okay.
anytime soon.
it's a good place to be sober. I
Yeah.
get it. That's
But I remember you've seen the Roosevelt Hotel spoken about time and time again in the media. They've now just closed it. There were over 1,000 illegals staying there on New York State and the federal government's dime. When I was a teenager working for my dad's laundry, I used to walk with hangers over my back to the Roosevelt Hotel and deliver laundry to the rich people that live there. It was heartbreak. It was heartbreak.
gotcha. So you were the labor force at one time for that hotel, and now you're sad that you could actually stay in the penthouse.
Well, I also used to deliver to Trump Tower.
Ah.
Those people were rich. They made the Roosevelt people look like paupers.
Well, I hate to break it to you, but they're even more rich now. So yeah, that has continued. So, and uh, I mean, so if you really look at that, and you talk about some of the immigration that has come through the New York State. I mean, how does that compare to Florida then? You
Well,
definitely left in your 20s. You saw a lot of change. When did you move to Florida?
I moved to Florida
In your
just 4
20s?
years ago.
Ah, so that's recent. So you from New York, you went to
I went to Maryland, Washington, D.C.,
ah
and Maryland for about 35
gotcha,
years, raised a
gotcha.
family there.
Ah,
Um,
nice.
but, New York becoming a sanctuary city, just like Chicago, Portland, Denver, Seattle,
Austin.
on and on and on, Austin,
Yeah.
they magnetically attracted illegals because they said, hey, we'll give you $1,000 a month debit card. We'll give you a place to stay. We'll let you see a doctor and a dentist. We'll give you a cell phone. It's like the whole planet was going to these cities. And, the Democrats, eh, they knew what would happen. If you give someone, if you offer a drug addict free cocaine, he's not going to turn it down. He's going to beat a path to your door. And what happened? Millions of illegals beat a path to the doors of these sanctuary cities. And then they all started screaming, no mas, no mas. But Joe Biden kept giving them money. And now Trump cut off all the money. And they're crying. Their
And
own
by
fault.
no mas, just to break that down a bit, by no mas, you mean most of them are coming
No
from
more, no more.
south? Right.
Well,
But I will say, I mean, there are some interesting stats. I mean, of the legals that we call illegals or undocumented immigrants actually got here on a plane, and they're not necessarily from South America. One of the leading nationalities are actually from India.
there's
But it has
120
changed.
countries. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's changed a lot. And I do know the cell phone, ICE gave out cell phones for a while, but they were only to incarcerated with digital. And then there were phones. There's a FEMA program that did help pay for some hotels and some during hard times, the ice storms. So some of this stuff has happened, not as much necessary as it gets talked about, but it definitely has happened, in this country. But when we look at this, and the basis of the show is to look at population declines. And, we are one of the countries, our fertility rate is 1.7. I looked up Australia, you're 1.4.
Yeah.
And so
You guys
we
work
both have,
there, Ethan.
yeah, we both have declining populations. Ethan and I were talking about when we were in Australia, this is like 25 years ago. I, as an American citizen, I was there legally. However, I have been undocumented in the country once, or at least detained as an undocumented once. But in Australia, we went to the local magistrate's office and we attempted to see if we could get what is called the dole there, or welfare. And in Australia, I qualified for about 300, I think it was around $350 a fortnight, which is every 2 weeks. And Ethan, being a citizen, he was eligible for more, but it's me as a lawful abiding immigrant, I was able to get some money, which does incentivize a migrating population to say, hey, if I just go here, I could get some money. So I understand that incentive. We were to pull that off. However, my one time of being an undocumented immigrant, I think I already told you, Ethan, I was considered to be a Russian spy in Poland at the start of the invasion in Ukraine, and they detained me. Luckily, it was just a mix-up because I had been issued a new passport, and my old passport, they still only had that number. So in the mix-up of a few hours of being detained in handcuffs, we got that all cleared up. So that's the closest thing I have to being an undocumented, but they were sure ready to get rid of me, by plane or by
So
border
that's why
as they
you're
could.
doing everything you can to repopulate the planet.
Exactly. I think Ethan, you can tell them about your
I'm on
your
the
Musk plan.
I'm on the Elon Musk plan. Yeah, I have 5 children right now to 3 mothers. So top by Troy.
I think he has 9 or
Yeah,
15 or something.
Well, he started earlier than me. I was talking to a chick from
Yeah, he's still going.
about a discussion with friends because she's here in Australia visiting, and she was constantly going to work with other friends, and they all decided not to come here right now because they're afraid of getting deported.
There's a chilling effect because, I manage retirement money for many people, and I have as a fiduciary for many years. And people are quite, concerned with what's going on. And, you try to offer clarity, but sometimes there's no clarity to be offered. Okay. So, the market will open up maybe down 1,500 points. Then there's a headline, whether it's true or not, doesn't matter. There's a headline, and then the market zooms up 1,000 points. So, trying to make decisions when it's going like a
Well,
yo-yo.
literally 2,000 points
Yeah,
yesterday when
it's impossible.
a mistaken 90-day delay was
Yeah.
announced. Right.
So, the point is I tell everyone, take a step back, take a breath. This will not resolve all this uncertainty. The market hates uncertainty. All this uncertainty will sort itself out over months and quarters, not next Thursday. And what you just mentioned, this chilling effect, these people did not want to come to America because they were afraid of the consequences. This is going to play itself out over months and months and months until there's some type of equilibrium. And everyone has to sit back and be patient.
I can even see a lot of Canadians not wanting to, come and visit the U.S. in their summer travels, this summer. So, and of course,
A
I'd
lot of
say,
people go to Michigan because it's right across.
right. Well, I wonder if they will now. I wonder how busy Buffalo will be this time of year, or even this summer.
I never did like Buffalo. Every time I visited, it was like 12 degrees.
It's always cold in Buffalo, so
Stuck in the
it's always
desert.
cold.
I was
Now-
stuck in the desert in Phoenix for 10 years.
They
They must be selling all their houses, right? Because they have to get rid of all their American stuff now, don't they? The Canadians.
Yeah. I have a mentor from Cleveland, and he always used to say how bad the winters were. People would, die in their driveway, trying to move the snow and everything. And then he moved to Phoenix for about 12 years. And he said, in Cleveland during the fall, everyone used to rake their leaves. So, you drive on the weekend, to Safeway or to the grocery store, and you see everyone on the lawn raking their leaves. That's how they're spending their weekends. And he said when he moved to Phoenix, it was so hot, no one had grass. They all had gravel. And they all had wooden rake raking the gravel so that it looked pretty. And he'd tell me this, he'd say, people are idiots.
Well, what's nice is your roof can match your lawn. You can gravel them both nonstop. So chances are many of them were not the ones out doing the gravel of their lawn. And so that's really a nice point that you did wealth management for a lot of people. I mean, you're focused on retirement. Our population's changing. There are not enough of my generation to really support the older generation. Social Security is coming. Medicare is both, out there. What do you say to an immigrating population or to a population that is declining? There's estimated to be anywhere between 11 to 15 million undocumented workers in the U.S. right now. How do they contribute or don't contribute to our society as it is? And how does that contribute or not contribute to those who are retiring, us as a nation and individually?
Joseph, that's a great question. I'm going to try to answer it by giving you the side that I don't believe and the side that I do believe. So I've seen on TV, people like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Waters, and all these, really left-wing Democrats saying, we need the illegals. Who's going to do the jobs that Americans don't want to do? Mow the lawns, work in
Raking
the
the
fields
roof.
in agriculture, things of that nature. Okay. And, my sense is that if you pay somebody enough, like I'll clean, okay, Ethan, this is directed to you. I will clean your toilets if you pay me enough money.
Are you aware that
Wait, you do know they go the other direction, though, right?
you
You're going to
might
have
not
to,
be
that's a whole
familiar-
different skill set.
you might not be familiar with Australian toilets, but yeah,
No. So the point is,
yes.
the fact that they're saying you can't get Americans to do these jobs, if you pay them a wage, you will find people that'll pick oranges and cotton and strawberries and mow lawns and all that stuff. Okay. And I firmly believe that an undocumented alien is an illegal alien. When they crossed into the United States knowingly, they broke our laws. They broke federal law. And that is a criminal act, and they should be deported. That is my viewpoint. They did something illegal. They have no right to be here. I know they want to be here. I get it. I'm not an idiot. But they have no right to be here. And all of these financial resources that these sanctuary cities paid to all these illegals, I've read the articles and I've written about them. In Denver and in Portland, community centers closed early, DMV offices cut their hours. All of these county services have been cut. Their budgets have been cut, and the money moved over to care for illegals. So this is hurting the residents because their taxpayer dollars are not supporting them. They're supporting people that have no right to be there.
Now, 70%, just to break some of this, 70% of our undocumented population did not necessarily crawl through the wall. So most of them are all visa overstays. And so there are the 30% that I agree you did break a law, you crossed here. To overstay your visa.
Visa overstay is a criminal act.
Yeah.
It's not a felony, though. It's a misdemeanor. I recently actually just got charged with a felony for having my pool permit. I have some apartments, and I didn't renew the pool permit. And shockingly, I found out that's a felony charge.
I went through property. I spent all the money. I secured my right to be in America. And then while I was there,
Yeah, there has to be consequences to poor.
When I told Ethan I was going to call ICE on him, he went and got a beer. He had no idea what
I'd get a vodka. But the point is, there has to be consequences to illegal behavior. If someone's at Columbia University, which is all over the media, and there's, all pro-Hamas, Israel into the sea, so on and so forth, and they're radicalized, they don't belong here on a green visa or whatever it's called, and they should be kicked out because they're not acting politely in a host country.
And this comes, I think what you're getting at is, say, if you're going to break a law or, something that, I think freedom of speech is where you're going at, that you're even implying that, if you're going to say hostile things to the host country, you should be out. So limiting
let's just,
maybe the freedom of
you're
speech.
From Honduras, just to pick a country. Okay, nothing against Honduras. If you're going to do a crime, do it in Honduras. Don't do it in New Jersey.
Fair, but we now have pretty solid data that immigrants actually create, or what is the word? Commit crimes at a lower rate than even our own residents. And immigrants report crimes even less.
Will disagree with you. I remember reading about 2 to 3 months ago where the violent crimes in New York and the murders were predominantly caused by illegals.
be another statistic too, because that might be violent crime, right? So I imagine that there is going to be more criminal activity by the citizens, but it might not necessarily always be violent crime.
Gotcha. The only one I know of is there's a National Crime Victim Survey. I think it was like 2019. They did one which is broad, but New York is slightly different in that New York will pull in a lot of federal, and the like 90% of all of those are, the crime is the actual act of overstaying. But that's where that one's biased on the federal level, just because their existence is thus a crime. I have apartments here. I've worked with many illegals. I really don't look or ask. I'm sort of in that policy. And I do know that just local economies do bring in funding. I'm a landlord. I pay property taxes. And how do I make money from paying property taxes? I have tenants. And those tenants, if they are illegal, they are therefore paying property taxes. And if they shop here, they're paying sales tax. If they buy fuel here, then they're paying fuel tax for the roads.
I get that. I get what you're saying, but they have no right to be here. They have no legal right to be here. I'm a law and order kind of guy. Okay. And, I was a poli-sci major in college because I was an idiot. Okay. I thought I'd be a constitutional lawyer or something. That went out the window real quick. Okay. Okay.
Was it at the First or Second Amendment?
Well, I took con law 1, 2, and 3, and I helped teach con law 4.
So it was the 14th Amendment.
What the hell was I thinking about? I don't know. But I got to tell you that I got drunk with my con law professor. He was really cool. But getting back to it, a legal right to be here. So, in Florida, well, wherever you are, if you're a landlord, if you're a property owner, you have a massive amount of vendors helping you maintain your properties. The electricians, the plumbers, on and on, the roofers, on and on and on. And I tell every single company that I'm working with, you need to send me people that speak perfect English and that are U.S. citizens. If someone shows up and I can't understand them, I'm sending them away.
And the crux of that is just to say, so I, kind of rephrase the argument there, is to say, you're not here legally. I am only supporting basically Americans. So if you're saying English, that means you want someone who speaks English, implying that if you don't speak English, you're probably not an American. So the point of that is really solely saying, like, I'm supporting American no matter what. That's really the issue. I don't care on price. I'm just doing it on principle.
There's a lot of service industries where there are a lot of illegals working there. There was a news clip 2 nights ago, and I don't know where it was because it said, the local radio station, and it said the name of the town, but it didn't say what state the town was in. Okay. And I think it was a meat packing facility, and ICE came in and took out 40 illegals. Okay. I think it was meat packing. I might be wrong. No.
This is probably down in Warren Buffett's.
It was a roofing.
Oh, roofing. Okay.
Yeah. They took out 40 illegals. Okay. And who would have any idea that many illegals were working at just one of the places in town?
Right. Just one roof location.
Whether it's Indiana or Montana.
Right now, our unemployment is a little above 4%. We have many baby boomers soon to push retirement. I think you know where this is going. So there you go. A month from now, right? I think that's what you said.
July 1st.
Wow. July 1st. Congratulations. So as you step out of this field, you're now putting pressure on Ethan and I to have to fill your shoes.
Not so much.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on, Ethan. I probably would fail that.
I don't think technology's got me covered. I think technology is gonna it's gonna serve everyone. Technology's gonna serve me.
Ethan's like, I'm gonna run ChatGPT. How can I confuse mine builds little wealth? Nice.
So, me, I have. There's a word that I love, not more than any other, but it's what keeps me going, and that word is dividends. Okay. With you, it's rental income. Okay. I love dividends. I even have a coffee mug. I love dividends. Okay. So I'm not going to rely on Ethan, so that I can buy.
And by dividends, you're really saying passive income. Give me something I can invest in, and it pays me over time, basically paying you interest.
That's what technology is about, to give so many more people. We don't have to think for ourselves anymore, and then we're going to have robots.
Well, Ethan, there's a problem with that, and the problem is that the brain becomes lazy. So a friend of mine told me about this. He said his wife turns on the GPS in the car, even if she's going to her mother's house, which she's been to hundreds of times, and obviously she does know the way to her mom's house, okay? But she just likes to see it being mapped in front of her. And he said that, some university made a study, and they attached the electrodes to people's brains, and they found out that when you're being guided by technology and GPS and all that, your brain kind of shuts off. And that's not a good thing. Okay. You want your brain to be active, saying, do I hang a left on 4th Street to go to mom's house or a right?
Now, Rodger's playing both sides of this argument now, Ethan. Because Crocky is saying that
that's what
we can get rid of all of our immigrants because we won't need them because technology is going to fill in with robots. But Rodger's saying don't let the bread go, or don't let the brain go to mush, because you will need it. But to the point of that, are we going to have enough work? Unemployment's at 4%. We saw what happens with a labor shortage during COVID. We now have I would say it's 4%, but we still have a labor shortage. So how do we kind of fill this void, having undocumented workers that are here? It's estimated that undocumented workers attribute about $100 billion a year in tax revenue. And I get it if we're on principle, but about 20 billion. It was 12 billion the last time they surveyed this, which was like 2010. Today's estimates are around maybe 30, but the closest thing people can get is about 20. So let's say it's about 20 billion they contribute to FICA, which means they won't get it. So they're paying the Social Security, of which we need, that we don't get. So we do have undocumented workers who are contributing $100 billion a year just in tax revenue, building an economy, filling jobs that, can we replace these 11 million workers if we were to say, move these visa overstays, let's say out of the country? And that's to be clear that
we will find out. And as Tip O'Neill, from Congress back in the 60s used to,
that's a long time ago.
A billion here, a billion there. All of a sudden you're talking real money.
All right. Now you're saying we'll find out. I do know Trump ran on the campaign that there was going to be mass deportation. It's actually way below what Biden was doing at the same time this year.
He's got the bite. Oh, I totally get it. It's got to be ramped up big time.
All right. And I mean, do you think that part of it has been an eye-opener to saying, okay, actually, I can't move that much, because if you were to move, I mean, everything that is happening is trying to get the press. So the Venezuelan planes,
I want to see
that's trying to make
military
news.
planes a day. Phil,
if you were to see that, let's say we do it on principle, what do you think the impact of that would be? Would you agree that would push up wages?
I don't know. I'm not smart enough to answer.
All right. Well, let's just hypothetically.
I just don't know. Well, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, you did reference it already, because you said you'll go and clean Ethan's toilet,
right,
if you pay you enough, right? So
plumbers
make a lot
of money
in order to get a lot of this done.
Plumbers make a lot of money in Australia. I'll tell you that.
But the point is, I think it's more important to get the people that have no right to be here, to get them out of the country. And then we will figure out how to live as American, just like we have. We will figure it out.
Australia, right? We are bringing in millions of people, and
you guys are insane. You're nuts.
Yes, it's insane.
Isn't the middle of the country empty?
Yeah.
Uber Petey. Well, let me break this down, because I want to recap what Ethan said, just because you're breaking up a little bit. I want to make sure our listeners, our one listener, thanks Mom, is able to understand really what you're saying. Is that you said it best yourself, so I just want to repeat it. Now, you said it's changing what it means to be Australian. Rodger, would you agree with that in the same vein, that one of the reasons is you feel it's changing what it means to be American?
Yeah, because I remember when I moved to Queens after college, because I was too poor to live in Manhattan. It was too expensive. And there were areas of Queens that it was just Albanians or Russians or Yugoslavian, Czech. And you didn't enter those neighborhoods because you weren't welcome. Okay? It was like the Little Italy, the Little Russia, so on and so forth. And you could make the argument very simply that they did not become American. They spoke Russian. They only went to Russian stores. They ate at Russian restaurants. They bought Russian foods, and they worshiped at the Russian temple. And they didn't go outside of their little area. And all the different nationalities did the same thing in Queens and Brooklyn. I don't know about the Bronx, certainly not Manhattan that I knew of. Okay. But there were millions of those. So can I make the argument? Did they become American? Not really. A little town.
But if I go to New York now, it seems quite assimilated. You can travel through these places, and it seems like everybody is. I haven't noticed that Russia has taken over, or Little Italy has taken over. It seems pretty American when I go to New York now. So wouldn't that into the argument that over time
you may not have
we
been
all
to the right place.
enter a melting pot?
You may not have been to the right place, because the whole idea of the melting pot. I grew up on the Lower East Side, and I went to school in the old Jewish ghetto. I went to school on Delancey Street at a place called Seward Park High School. Seward's Folly, buying glass.
Right.
That's
Right.
Seward. Okay. And it was a melting pot over there. You had the Italians next to the Poles, next to the Czechs, the Albanians, the Russians, the Germans, on and on and on. But when you went out into Queens and Brooklyn, I mean, from 110th Street to 135th Street, that was Russian. Okay. And if your ass was caught there, you had a problem. Okay. So I remember that.
Gotcha. Let's say that is the core, but if we agree, all right, undocumented workers, a lot of them visa overstays, they do pay into the federal government. I help at community tax centers, so I help many illegals file their taxes. It is one of the social programs not talked about much, but it is actually one they tap into, which is the earned income tax credit. So this is happening, but down to the point is maybe they don't assimilate into the country so well. So then there's two ways about this. Let's say, just hypothetically, we approve all undocumented workers, we give them legal status. From what you're saying, that doesn't actually satisfy the issue.
I would hate for that to happen, because I'm of the opinion that the Democrats have allowed tens of millions of undocumented workers coming in the hope that they will all eventually vote Democrat, and we will have a one-party country permanently. And I want you to know that makes my blood pressure boil.
But doesn't Trump just getting elected kind of say that won't happen? I mean, it did just flip to the conservative side against the Uni Party.
Well, what I find remarkable is the fact that, the Democrats, they rail against DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, and they rail against Elon Musk, but not a word in support of rooting out the fraud, waste, and abuse. They won't acknowledge it. They will not talk about it. All they'll say is Doge and Elon Musk is evil, and they'll, make lawsuits in Democratic, courts with activist judges. Not a single one comes out and says, you know something? They found so much waste and abuse and fraud. I'm really glad they did that. Not a single Democrat will say that.
Well, hopefully Doge pays off.
On the Republican side,
so Crockett, you're really saying there are Republicrats. The Republicrats are the Uni Party.
That
I'm having trouble understanding.
I'm saying that the people that vote Democrat, they're not even told. They will do whatever the CD says. Democrats doing this, we'll do this. Like you say, if Republicans are doing this, we'll do this. They don't even believe in their core values. They just believe in whatever their brand, the red team, is doing.
They don't have any core values.
That's what I'm saying. But neither side does. Neither side does.
No, I think the Republicans have a lot of core values.
I think Republicans have taken over the core values that Democrats used to have.
That's an interesting argument. The Democrats used to be law and order. They got away from that. They're not even saying that it's bad that Tesla dealerships are being firebombed. They're all happy about it. You raise a very, very good point, Ethan. Everything that I see in the media, all of the violence, it's all on the left. The right does not disrupt city council meetings. They don't fling rocks.
Well, that's unless you're in a parade and they happen to be armed with a car.
It's only the left that has been violent and destructive and, not letting people speak. On the right, have either of you heard of Charlie Kirk?
Yes.
No.
He has an organization called Turning Point USA. Look it up. You'll see Charlie Kirk on YouTube a lot. He goes to universities, and he is a staunch Republican, and he has a little tent that says, "Persuade me." And all these leftists come up and tell him he's wrong about everything. And he has a civilized conversation with them based on fact. They yell at him. This is college kids. They yell at him. They scream at him. On the news just last night, Antifa stole all his tent, microphones, and tables and bashed all the equipment so that they couldn't even, just to sit down talking rationally.
Well, the Proud Boys, Antifa, I think everybody's got their weirdos. But to get back to the point, Ethan's really saying there's a uniparty that I call it the Republicrats. So you'd say both parties are really part of this one. I think, Rodger, to clarify your point, you're really saying the uniparty was more the Democratic Party to put in full control, which Republicans have now taken. So that should kind of put pressure against the idea of a uniparty. There are a couple of new parties. There's a new one, Yang out of New York. He's heading up one called Forward. And then we even have, let's call it the Panicans. I'd probably be part of the Panikin Party, which Trump coined as those who are freaking out about tariffs.
Oh, panicking.
Okay. He tweeted out about it. Don't be a panikin.
Well, there's a socialist in Queens running for mayor or governor. One of the wants to raise corporate income taxes through the roof to provide free programs for everybody. Okay.
So going back to free programs is the social endeavor itself. We've cleared up that if immigrants were to come here, they do pay for themselves. Like, what are some of those other core issues that really don't allow a population to assimilate? Because I'm here in Austin, Texas. Texas is a majority minority state. I am a mixed race household. Soon over 1% of the population will be mixed race households. Texas, if you go to our schools, almost every school will have at least 60% minority. And so Texas is Texas. We have Tex-Mex. There's lots of Spanish spoken all over the place. We speak Spanish here. We speak English there. For Texas, this is Texas. It's definitely part of assimilation. I think it's somewhat similar maybe in Florida. I don't spend as much time in Florida, but I definitely know in Arizona and California, very similar. You hear arguments on both sides where, assimilation has not worked. And in some cases, assimilation, has worked. We hear it either there. But is that really the heart of why immigration can't work? Because this almost tends to be a xenophobic argument. And so I just want to,
there is a lot of xenophobia. But what I think Americans are more worried about than anything else is illegals overrunning their country and then all being legalized. Because, I remember...
And this goes back to Elon Musk argument of they're giving Social Security numbers away. They can come and vote. Even though Pew Institute did find that almost 80% of most South Americans who enter the country tend to be more conservative. Family values are number one. And so other than the fact that they hate them, they probably would tend to vote more conservative than liberal.
I've met a lot of legal, Legal, immigrants over the years, and they all, and I asked them, And they all told me how hard it was to become a legal American. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years before they were able to do it. And they hate the fact that these people are coming in.
And this is kind of the cutting in line issue, right?
You're exactly right. It is cutting in line when these people waited in line for years and years. And so
that's definitely fair.
Understand their anguish.
So, I mean, if the cutting in line, I mean, but back to where we are now, I mean, we are here with 11 to 15 million undocumented, residents.
Probably 20 to 30.
And it very possibly could be more, but let's just say it's 15 because even the numbers, the larger, this only exacerbates the issue. How do we deal with that now? I mean, what's a solution that we go forward now? I mean, to really do, obviously the White House has learned that mass exportation is not something that they actually want.
Well,
I think it would be economic nightmare, not to mention they just created one.
I'm going to disagree with that because they haven't even been in place for 100 days. Okay.
Gotcha.
They're still getting their feet. Okay. And my sense is that in a couple of quarters, they will have ramped up the mass deportation and have it balanced on the head of a pin. Okay. They're going to have it down to a science, but it's going to take a while to ramp up because even just to get 1 million people out of the country in 4 years, that's 250,000 a year. That's what, about 20,000 every month? That's nothing. They got to figure out a machine.
You got to think Austin is 2.5 million people.
Yeah, they got to figure out how to create a machine from scratch.
It would be World War II Nazi style. I mean, I don't know how else they would round up and move that many people. But let's break that down and say, okay, so maybe that's the plan with undocumented. Let's say that's where the administration goes. We're going to extract. What about those who are legal? Now, I myself has sponsored quite a few. So I know many people who have overstayed their visa. They actually have been the victim of so many crimes because they're scared to death to report it. Many of them have children that are born here, so their children are legal citizens, but the parents aren't or the grandparents aren't. So I've sponsored many to help them get, their legal citizenship here in the U.S. So I'm very with those arguments, but that's one way of getting legal citizenship. The other one is what I just mentioned. Their children were born here. They now have legal citizenship. At the border, they have a couple of things. They have, DACA, which is the Deferred Action Childhood, action. And so this is one where, a child could come across that maybe they're not with their parent, but they can now been released to a family member or a friend. They'll try to find someone here. And then in regards to some of the cages, if you will, I know my lights are off here. It's gone dark on me all of a sudden.
Are you in it?
But the Flores settlement agreement. I know. I got stuck. I got picked up myself. So, but in regards to the Florence settlement agreement, which references how we treat families of those who are in the cage, but then down to the 14th Amendment, because I hear it's even now being questioned, and that is, if someone, is born here, are they, a citizen? Are these proper paths to give citizenship? And what's your take on this either?
It's a very, very messy question. There's a lot of constitutional aspects to it. And the founders had never even considered the fact. And I think a member of Congress asked this last week. He said, if my wife and I vacation in Italy for a month and she goes into labor and has a kid, is that kid an Italian citizen? It's a damn good question. I don't think so.
It's only America that offers citizenship because it's purely from birth in that location. If you're traveling here and have a child is not Australian.
So 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized
and have a kid, I don't believe that kid should be an American citizen. And if they want to create a path for citizenship, okay, give them 6 years of compulsory military service. And once they do that, we'll give them 4 years.
Slavery, indentured servants.
Okay.
Gotcha. Now, to break down where Rodger, the argument, so I'll understand, 14th Amendment, all persons born and naturalized in the United States. However, Radford, there's a caveat, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's where many lawyers are coming in and saying that, is that the jurisdiction? And so this is where it's come off to be a caveat where some have said, well, that is or that isn't naturalized citizens. Now, you had mentioned that our forefounders didn't think of this, but I mean, the U.S. is really founded on immigrants, unlike, no offense, Ethan, but criminals. Just kidding. So,
yes, that's
the U.S. There you go. Ouch. So, however, it's being founded by immigrants, those who were seeking repression, wanted freedom of religion. They really came here in a thought-provoking manner that these founders were definitely, in what I would say, they were thinking about immigration. They were immigrants. They were facing immigration. And they knew they were going to expand the country more. And so in that vein, wouldn't they have already thought through, like, what does it mean to be part of this group, these 13 colonies we're putting together?
The founders were facing a very different challenge. They were having to populate America for the first time. So they wanted everyone to come. They were giving land away to come.
If I was having a conversation with John Adams or Thomas Jefferson, which I'd give my left nut to do, but that's beside the point, okay? And I asked them, I said, I want you to fast forward 250 odd years. And now there's a whole bunch of people coming illegally into our country. We actually have fences, but they came in under the fences, over the fences, in the middle of the night, human trafficking, just to be, in the U.S. And many pregnant women did that just so their kid could be born in Texas or Arizona or California. Mr. Adams, Mr. Jefferson, do you think that those people should automatically be American citizens? I don't think they'd say yes.
But isn't that the American dream? I mean, isn't that what this is about? Is, as you said, equal opportunity? I mean, isn't that what this country is built on, is to kind of offer that opportunity?
The Honduran dream, the Polish dream, the Russian dream, let them have their dream over there. They have no right to the American dream. Only Americans have that right.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Nice. Yeah. No, boy. So, folks, you have heard it here. Rodger, really appreciate you joining us today. Rodger, maybe if you'll hold up your book again.
So, Erasing America talks about the Biden years and how things became very, very unstable during those years, where the Biden administration encouraged massive illegal immigration and massive fraud and waste. You want to learn more about it? Erasing America, Broken Politics, Broken Country, available on Amazon, which I think is the last bookstore in the galaxy.
Nice. And we'll put a link to your book
also, one other
thing in the comments.
I have a website. It's called eocritic.com, short for Equal Opportunity Critic. And I do write a newsletter that talks about these issues every 2 weeks. You could sign up for free at eocritic.com. I'll add you to the subscriber list. You could cancel at any time.
Awesome. Really appreciate you joining us today, Rodger, and joining the conversation. Ethan, you can get back to your morning breakfast, and until next time.
Ethan, have some Captain Crunch.
I'm not the vegetable.
Take care, all.
Awesome.